Hi, this is Michael Rubin, and last time we talked about creating major scales, and we said you start with the first note, go up a whole step, then a whole step, then a half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And we said a whole step is 2 notes and a half step is 1 note. So one, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And we said memorizing that is very important. Okay, so let's find some major scales. Okay. Here's a C. Let's do the C major scale. So that's the first note. That's the 1. We're going to go up a whole step to the second note. 2 notes. So C sharp, D. So the second note is D. Whole step. So D sharp, E. The third note is E. Then from the third to the fourth note is only a half step. That's important to remember. From the third note to the fourth note is the half step. Goes up 1 note to F. Remember, there's no black key between E and F. Goes up a whole step, F sharp to G, goes up a whole step, G sharp to A, goes up a whole step, A sharp to B, and then from the 7th to the 8th note goes up a half step to C. Remember, there's no black key between B and C, so that's important information. In between the 3rd note and the 4th note and the 7th note and the 8th note is a half step. Very important. Okay. So I'm going to play it. Can you hear do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do? That's what we're shooting for. We're trying to come up with a group of notes that when you play it, it sounds like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So the next note, the next key is the C sharp key. Now you may say, why don't you call it the D flat key? And then the truth is, some people do call it the D flat key. The way I see it, it basically breaks down to rockers use the C sharp name and jazzers use the D flat name. But I don't think it really matters. I think the important thing is to come up with a scale that you can work with. And then if you work with another musician who uses the other name, to be smart enough to translate in your head to the way that you understand it. So C sharp. Then we're going to go up a whole step. That's the first note, C sharp. Up a whole step. 1, 2. D, D sharp is the next note. Up a whole step. E, F. Remember, there's no black key between E and F, so that's kind of tricky. If you're on D sharp, 2 notes higher, E, F. Up a half step. Remember, from the 3rd to the 4th note, half step. F sharp, whole step. G, G sharp, whole step. A sharp, whole step, another tricky one, B, C. Half step from the 7th to the 8th note, C sharp. So it sounds like this. Now, some of you at home who already know some music theory may be shouting at the screen saying there's something wrong there. It's not the sound of the notes that's wrong. It's the names of the notes that are wrong. And we're probably going to explain how to correct that in the next video. So just hang in there. I'm getting there. But for right now, what we did is we took that pattern, 1 whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, and we found do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And so functionally, we're on the right track. And I'll do one more scale for you, the D scale. So D is our first note, goes up a whole step, D sharp, E, goes up a whole step, E, F sharp, goes up, let's stop for a second. You know, I could have called that G flat, but I called it F sharp instead. Why? Because the first note was D. What comes after D in the alphabet? E. What comes after E in the alphabet? F. So I call it F sharp as opposed to G flat because that creates an alphabetical flow. D, E, F sharp. Up a half step to from the 3rd to the 4th note, G. Up a whole step, G sharp, A. Up a whole step, A sharp, B. Up a whole step, C, C sharp. Up a half step, D. Can you hear it? Okay, So it works for all of them. So what you should have now, I recommend you write all this stuff down because you want to be able to look at this. You should have, these are all the notes on the keyboard, C, C sharp, D. And then this is the pattern, one whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And then below it I've got my 3 major scales. And you notice they're in parallel horizontal rows and 8 vertical columns that are parallel to one another. Makes it easy to read. Okay, we'll get to explaining what's wrong with the C sharp major scale in the next video. Alright, thanks very much.